panel is the Women of Color in Sci-Fi Television panel. My name is Letitia, and so I am the moderators panel. And so we're going to do a couple of things. One, we're going to have kind of a mini lecture portion. Then we're going to, I'm going to ask some questions to the panel, and then we're going to do a Q&A. So, cool? All right. So, first thing I'd like us to do, can we do a brief imagination exercise? So, can everyone please close your eyes? So what I want you to do is to imagine yourself imagine kind of the clothes you would adventure in. Imagine kind of what your shoes would look like if you're not wearing your shoes at all. Now I want you to imagine yourself running. Running just for the fun of it, for the joy of have your feet hit the pavement, and you're running to a very special place. A place where you feel the most free, the most excited. When you get to that place, I want you to stop and look around. And I want you to see the world in front of you that is full of possibility. Now, whenever you're ready, open your eyes. So I have a question for you guys. Who here in that exercise went to some place that is real, that you could physically go to? Raise your hand. Quite a few people. Who here went someplace that was imaginary? Awesome. Now here's my big question. Who here went to a place that you've been before, either real or imagined? A lot of us. See, one thing I think is important is when we talk about the stories that we believe in, the stories that we connect with, we see endless possibilities. And I think especially, when it comes to, women of color, you see the large possibilities before you. Often until, this character is Grace. It's from a book called Amazing Grace, where she, just like us when we were children, dreamed of herself being in the star of Harvard Adventures, the hero, the villain, whomever she was, she played a central part in her own stories. And I think we often, as children, we play a central part in our own stories. Sometimes until we go to school. In this picture, Grace's teacher is about to put on a production of Peter Pan. And knowing that she has imagined so many things, Grace raises her hand. I want to be Peter. The little girl to the left of her says, you can't be Peter Pan. Peter Pan's not black. The little boy next to her says, you can't be Peter Pan. Peter Pan's not a girl. And Grace, I think like a lot of us, defiantly keeps her hand up. There was an educator, Emily Stiles, who wrote a paper in 1998 that was called Curriculum as Windows and Mirrors. What she basically was saying was that there's some books, some curricula that allows people to see a reflection of themselves when you're seeing, people who look like you, people with your background. So that is a mirror. But then you also see windows into other people's lives. It's just the way that the curriculum was set up, specifically centered around many characters who were, white men or white boys. What you ended up was a whole lot of mirrors for certain people and a whole lot of windows for others. And so it's hard to see yourself when it seems like you're invisible. And it's hard to understand other people's perspectives when it seems that your perspective is the only one that matters. So, what's really fascinating is that you would think, in the world of sci-fi, where literally anything is possible, we've got fairy tale kingdoms, unicorns, orcs, and witches, you would think that having people of diverse cultures and backgrounds is commonplace. But we know that's not always the case. So this particular slide talks about diversity within children's books, but I feel like it applies in many ways across a lot of different media. And you see, you have the mirrors that everyone is looking into. And now this little white boy, you know, very nice boy, but he has all these different options of how he can see himself. So the question is, what is this panel about? This panel is about showing love. Showing love to the women of color who have graced our screens and given us a few more possibilities of who we could be. So I want to show love to your desire to be a pirate and be a warrior, your desire to be a kind and sweet person, your desire to be a pilot, your desire to be a fairy tale princess, or maybe someone who fights for the liberation of her people, a scientist, a warrior, or a mother. So that's what this is about. So, first up, you know her, you love her, the lovely Nichelle Nichols. Yes, now I'm sure you have heard her story a million times. You're going to hear it 1,000,003. So, Nichelle Nichols, first of all, she was the first woman of color, period, to have a dramatic role, period. Just a dramatic role. Of course, we know it wasn't stereotypical, but the idea that there were not women of color on television in a drama before her. Not just in sci-fi, just period. So Nichelle Nichols was trained as a singer and a dancer and wanted to be, you know, on Broadway. And so she actually had planned on quitting Star Trek after the first season. But what happened was Gene Roddenberry was like, yo, can you take a minute? Just think about it over the weekend. So she went to the NAACP fundraiser, and there she met one of her biggest fans, Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King was like, I love Star Trek. It's one of the few shows that let my children stay up to watch. And Nichelle told him, no, thank you, but I'm leaving. And he told her, you can't do that. And she's like, why? She's like, you are the only non-stereotypical role on television. The vision of of the show that you're on has, you know, is treating people of diverse colors as equals. It's so important. And so she stayed on for the next 2 seasons. Now, one of the young ladies that Nichelle Nichols inspired was a little girl named Karen Johnson. Karen Johnson was from Manhattan, and she lived with her mother. And when she saw Nichelle Nichols on her television, she ran to her mom and was like, Mom, you never believe it! I saw a black lady on television, and she wasn't no maid! So seeing Nichelle helped inspire Karen to eventually pursue a career in film and television. And Karen Johnson, better known as Whoopi Goldberg, you know, eventually just became such a fantastic, you know, icon. But also, when Star Trek The Next Generation came out, she wanted to get in this. Now, you have to remember, at this point in time, her star was rising, Color Purple had come out. They're like, Whoopi, you're amazing. Why do you want to be on this rinky-dink, crappy sci-fi show? And she was like, you don't understand. I am a Star Trek fan. I was a Star Trek fan long before I was ever Whoopi Goldberg. And something also is that Nichelle Nichols also went on to start to recruit astronauts for NASA. And she actually recruited Mae Jemison, who was the first black woman in space. This is Gail Fisher. Now, Gail Fisher is a little different. Gail Fisher is the second woman of color to be in a dramatic series. She was in a series called Mannix in around 1968. Now, the interesting thing about her is that she was actually the first black woman first woman of color, period, to win a Emmy and a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress. She, like Nichelle, understood that her role was vitally important. Now, like I said, she won 1970's Best Supporting Actress. A black woman would not get an award for Best Lead Actress until Viola Davis. Now, Viola Davis, in her acceptance speech, said, "We cannot win awards for roles that aren't there." Now, one thing that's interesting about Gail is that, by the time she passed in 2000, her story was largely forgotten. And so I do want to take a minute to honor her. So when I say her name, Gail Fisher, I want you to say, "We honor your story." Ready? Gail Fisher.
We honor your story.
Thank you. Now something a little different. You know her, you love her. She's Gina Torres has been holding it down, and I just love her and everything about her, and that's the entire point of this slide. And now if you don't know, she's starring in her own show, finally, Pearson, and she's just a wonder, in glory. But also, one thing I want to point out is that in so many of these roles, she was also the only woman of color around. Mm-hmm. And it seemed for so long, no one knew what to do. No one knew what to do with a tall, obviously beautiful, dark-skinned woman. And these were some of the only times that she was really on our screens in the sci-fi properties, which I find really interesting. But yeah, Gianna, she's amazing. So Kristen is interesting. The reason why I have her here is because Kristen is actually half Chinese on her mother's side. And I don't know if you were here earlier to see kind of the slides that we went through, but there may have been some people who may not have seen kind of visually as people of color. But I think the stories of, multi-ethnic people are also very important. One thing to keep in mind, which I think is interesting, in both Beauty and the Beast and the very ill-fated Chun-Li movie,
we don't talk about that.
I understand why. However, something to keep in mind is in both roles, she did play a biracial person.
Right.
Which she did not when she was in Smallville. So I kind of wonder, if by having maybe a little bit more clout, she was able to portray characters that were closer to who she was truly. So something to think about. And now, the question is, how did Grace's story end? So Grace, we know, she had her hand up to play Peter Pan, but felt really, really sad about it when she went home, that people had said things that she couldn't do it. Her grandmother took her to a show that had a beautiful black ballerina. And she was so inspired that she danced her entire way home. And of course, she kicked ass in her Peter Pan edition. And onward to our panelists. So these are my lovely panelists. I want you to introduce yourselves and, tell our amazing, amazing audience who you are and a little bit about what you're about.
Let us start with Allegriana.
Yes, I love the Queen of the Dance.
Your Majesty.
Thank you. I'm Allegriana. I am a Chinese, Jamaican, Puerto Rican mix. So Gina Torres is one of my idols because she is a beautiful black woman. She's a beautiful Latinx woman, and she also shares my last name. Could we be related? I don't know. I'm gonna bank on this fact should we ever meet each other. But I am a costumer and artist, and very, very excited to be on this panel again.
We're happy to have you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jonah. I'm an actress and producer. I'm Filipino American, and Letitia and I actually did a film earlier this year, and that's how I met her through. So I'm super excited to be here.
She's an awesome producer. That's
Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Halima, and I have a YouTube channel, Hamalam TV. Subscribe, and it focuses on fashion, style, nerd stuff, geek stuff, everything that I kind of like. You just follow my adventures. I also do just a little bit of modeling on the side. I've done a couple of campaigns here and there, a few fashion weeks here and there, and that's it.
New York Fashion Week But that's
My name is Nika Marie, if you want to add the middle name. I'm an actress and a model. I work for Corktastic, if you guys know who they are. Hell yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's basically acting wise. I do a little bit of that. I do a little bit of modeling. I've been out here turning looks all day. Yeah, that's me.
she was on Handmaid's Tale.
Yes, she was.
So I'm so excited to have this amazing panel, and really curious about your insights into like both media and the portrayals of like I said, women of color in this specific genre. So my first question for you guys is, who is like the first like live action or even animated woman of color that you remember growing up, who may have inspired you or made an impact?
I wonder who. No. So one of the first comic my parents ever got me was actually a comic with Nubia in it, Wonder Woman's half sister. That's not who I am. Don't get it twisted. But the second comic my dad, like the series that my dad got, was X-Men, and Storm was like my everything as a child. Praise. Bless the Storm. And then afterwards, Gina Torres is on the slide, and Gina Torres, like, that was it. When I saw her on Xena, I was obsessed with Xena, the show. She popped up as Cleopatra, and I was like, I'm done. I must act. So that's who drove me to everything. And, like, Nakia Burrise, if you guys know who that is, the third Yellow Power Ranger. She's the reason I now have 3 black belts. Like, everything is from a black woman in media who inspired me. So, yeah.
Well, for me, it was Whoopi Goldberg. She was the first one that I saw, and she inspired me in so many ways because she was powerful. She was empowered. She didn't hold back her power. She let you know who she was. She was not intimidated, and she used, her libation. She'd like to get everybody kind of drunk, which was great. But then she also used her style and her fashion. And that's one of the things that inspired me personally, because you can kind of go ahead and just tell who you are or let people know what you're about without saying a word, using your fashion. Mm-hmm. And so she absolutely did that. And then also I was very, very inspired by her because I was living in Southern Africa at the time, and she had the South African tribal type of headdress. I was like, I love her. And then, of course, the same with me. Storm, as we know, Storm is from East Africa, and she's from Kenya in the comics, where Wakanda is. Just like so yes, as a proud East African, that was kind of nice to just see that being represented for myself. So yes, that was.
Yes, definitely. So. Definitely Trini, the first Asian Power Ranger.
May she rest in power.
Yes, definitely. She's the whole reason why yellow is my favorite color. Oh. Yes. And then also Aisha Campbell, which is the second Power Ranger, of course. I love Power Rangers.
She was here last year.
She was.
Definitely Storm and Jubilee, of course.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Jubilee's so cute.
Yes, yeah. Doesn't get a lot of screen time in the movie, but it's all good. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that today.
Don't get there, girl.
And then, of course, Xena. Yeah, we've said so many.
We're here.
Yeah. We're on this level.
Wow, you guys covered like basically most of my childhood right there. I will say that like in addition to all of those, Storm was hands down my most favorite comic book character. My mom was a huge comic book nerd and Trekkie, so I got like the double dose of both of those. But then like also a little bit later, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Katara. That was like a little bit. I was not a small child when I saw that, I'll admit. But even like later in life, it was very impactful to see like this beautiful brown girl who like had these incredible powers, and was the hero of the show. Yeah. And then I hear one day we might get a movie or a live action adaptation of that.
One day.
But it certainly has not happened yet.
No.
So
No.
I look forward
in 70 years.
Because as the original animator, is behind the whole project. So
Yes, the creators are back on board, so we can have, and they specifically said, we want to do this right with the casting and have people of color as we intended.
right.
So, Brian and May, don't let me down.
Awesome. And actually, I want to add something. One thing that you mentioned to me once, Alegriana, is was B'Elanna Torres.
B'Elanna, yes.
Yeah, from Star Trek Voyager, and you two also share a last name.
I'm related to many very famous people. But B'Elanna actually also grabbed me as she was a biracial character,
Right.
And as a very ethnically confused child growing up, it was really inspiring to see a character who had to kind of reconcile these two very different cultures that she had come from, and had done so fantastically, and was now a friggin' boss. So I was like, well, there's hope for me too.
Yeah, and on the STEM side, I think is also for, at least for me, it was just inspiring also to see a woman who was clearly in control of, you're talking mathematics, science, making command decisions, and also, even though they talked about her kind of controlling her emotions, the fact that they were so upfront, so unapologetic. If something was wrong, I must say it's wrong and not necessarily tiptoe around someone else's emotions, and I will be respected for it, which is just something that I know I took to heart.
There's a lot of pushback against women embracing their emotions and being badasses. A lot of times the default mold is oh, well, for a woman to be a badass, obviously she can't be this emotional, hysterical creature with, who knows, a wandering uterus or something. And so sometimes women do get kind of slotted into the well, the only way to be badass is to be a stoic action hero. And and that's really not the case. There's a lot of ways for women to be strong and empowered, and
And speaking of kind of different ways of being strong and empowered, I think it's kind of easy to, and unfortunately easy to talk about kind of poor representation that we've seen. But I'm curious, while there's been a push for more quote unquote diverse stories in genre fiction, which shows do you think have been successful in showing, various women of color, and what specifically do you think they did right?
I have to think on this. I don't want to say a show and then someone be like, well, actually. And I'll be like, oh, snap.
Nothing's perfect.
Okay, no, well, actually allowed. I'll go. You know what? For me, I really liked there was a show on Fox called The Passage, which was based on an amazing series of books that I loved, and they canceled it. And what I liked about it was that there was there were various women of color on the show. One was a doctor who was a scientist who was really doing some ethically questionable things, but she was allowed to be like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. But then she was like, screw it, I'm doing it anyway because I have to save humanity. You don't really get to see that. You get to see, oh my gosh, I'm just totally bad and I'm stoic. You don't get to see complex people. And then the heroine, she young, dark-skinned black girl, which you don't really see, rough and tough with the Afro puffs. And, I really, really love that. That was the first thing that came to mind, and then, they canceled it, but I'm not bitter.
I'm bitter. On that same vein, though, the Orville did a really good job of just letting their characters of color exist. There weren't any, black jokes.
Yes, it wasn't dun dun, person of color.
Oh, look! It was okay, there are these people of color on the ship. They're doing their jobs. On with the plot now. There was a robot. There was the doctor's name. I forgot her name. But they had a robot and this doctor fall in love. And while at first I was like, this is a cop-out, then I was like, wait, they don't let black women fall in love often on TV. I'ma take it. And I actually really like The Orville, so if you guys haven't started it, start it. It's on Hulu.
Does it have to be a sci-fi show?
No.
One Day at a Time? Yes. Which got renewed.
Yes, it did.
has a lot of female characters, and the main family they focus on, they have the three generations, so the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter, and you can kind of see like, each generation has like distinct kind of cultural differences from the time period and the people that they grow up with. And so they did a really good job, I felt like, of kind of addressing the challenges that like each generation faces, and the way that like they adapted to and confronted these difficulties, and also like how that can kind of clash between generations a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're also very cute, and the daughter is just a huge nerd, and there's a whole episode where she goes and cosplays as the Doctor in the TARDIS with one of her friends at a comic book convention. It's just like, I do love, like, she's very proud of her Cuban heritage, and she's also very much just hardcore nerd. And those two things, they do not conflict.
Mm-hmm.
We can have both of those.
Any thoughts, Joey?
Yes, so actually when I read this question prior to the panel, I was actually kind of laughing at myself because I have not watched a lot of shows on purpose because of the lack of diversity. Sci-fi, in the sci-fi realm. Have you guys heard of this show Superstore?
Yes.
So that one I feel like it's just, it doesn't have...
I love that show.
I feel like they just do a great job with a simple storyline, diverse, like, cast, without a huge message that people have to walk away thinking like, oh my gosh, it's just human characteristics and I feel like I kind of like that. It doesn't have to be a message. It doesn't, it's always nice, but it doesn't always have to be a strong message about a lot of social justice issues. Like it's always a good thing, but definitely it's just nice.
Yeah, because
to,
we exist in more than like one dimension.
Right, so we're not confined in this one.
I feel like you can
character.
always kind of guess a little bit like what the writing room of the show must look like,
Yes.
based on how they portray people of color, and when they're like, as a black woman, you're just like,
oh no, sweetie.
Hey.
I think
Speaking of that dynamic, and this is just me personally, and I'm gonna possibly get hate on this, but I accept it. So in my personal compare and contrast, I would personally compare, the new reboot of Charmed versus, in my opinion, the new reboot of Roswell. And here's why. So in the new reboot of Charmed, what I've seen a lot of is some of that kind of pontificating that
a lot.
That's like, just so you know, you can always revoke your consent, and just so you know, you can do this, and just kind of like, it felt like no one who actually faces these issues actually talks like this.
Yeah.
And I contrast that personally, because I'm just a huge fangirl, to the new Roswell, and here's why. In the first episode, you have the main character, Liz Oteko, is stopped by the police at a traffic stop, right? And they let the other people pass through. She kind of goes off, just because she's angry. She's like, okay, you know what? Fine. You're going to stop listening? Okay, fine. So like the ACLU is going to be so up for your ass. And she goes and grabs her passport. Not her driver's license, her passport. Which I feel is a very specific choice. Because it's like, I've got to prove that I belong here. And it's something that she does very kind of naturally. It's like, you know what? I'm pissed. I'm irritated. Sure. And then she kind of realizes, wait, this may not be what I think it is. But I feel like as a person of color, you're like, I am moving through this world who is always trying to find reasons to say why I'm wrong. And I'm prepared for that. So it's a situational issue where this comes up, and less of a, let's stop and have a conversation. It's like, this is how we communicate. This is how we need to have this conversation. So that's my 2 cents.
No, it's great. The difference between monologuing and Charmed versus the situational awareness in Roswell.
And it just brings up something that I've experienced personally. That's why I related to that so much. Was anyone who has African relatives who have the green passport, going into an airport and you bust out the green passport, it's always like, You know, whereas when you have your blue American passport, it's just like, hey, sail away, sailing through. It's such a different experience, and I find myself having to be like, when I'm at the airport, busting out my passport and be like, and I'm just like, okay, let's just go through here. Yeah, so I really, really, really have felt that scene so much. So,
thank you. And I know this is on everyone's mind, so Ariel. All right, so in comic book media specifically, there have been a lot of like kind of, you know, quote unquote race bent characters, whether it's the casting of Iris West in Flash, or Rue being the actual color she is in the books.
Get into that. Right.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
But anyway, so that, you know, the change in the ethnicity of various characters has helped open doors for actors and actresses of color. But the change has often been accompanied with backlash, insults, just a lot of negativity. So, what do you think are the advantages of changing kind of the casting of existing properties, and what do you think has been kind of the effect of that backlash? Like, has there been an effect?
I'm going to try really hard not to talk a lot about this because I know these ladies are super smart, and I'm going to let them talk. The main problem I have is when people look at the actress cast and they go, oh, well, now the movie sucks. You don't know about the movie? Yeah. You didn't make that casting choice. You didn't see the script. What's changing about this story based on the race of this character whose race did not matter in the first place? That's what I need to know. So when people are like, I'm not racist, I just don't like the actress, why? That's what I need to know. Why? How's the story changing based on that actress? Why? So I fully think that while people can dislike the movie of The Little Mermaid, you cannot suddenly say it's ruined based on the color of an actress for the character of the mermaid whose race didn't matter in the first place. Done.
Yes.
You know, there was a little movie about a little-known character named Nick Fury that had a little-known guy named David Hasselhoff playing a guy named Nick Fury. Then a small little billion-dollar juggernaut started with an African-American Nick Fury. I think his name is, I don't know, I don't remember right now because he's not that well-known. I mean, I don't think that changing his race all of a sudden tanked anything. That's what I mean. It's just online nonsense. Yeah. It's just online noise.
Yeah.
You know,
Marvel's really struggled since then.
They made no money.
You know, it's a shame that that's what happened. You know, and that's why they're
took
going.
A risk.
Yeah,
it was bold.
they did. You know, but I mean, it's not just changing it with race and everything like that, because in the movies, just to kind of segue in the movies, Marvel is in the comics, Marvel is a man.
Yeah.
In the movies, sorry, spoiler alert. In the movies, it's a woman. Oh my God. I guess Captain Marvel didn't make any money because of that one change. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of noise. I feel that it drives a lot of online noise and a lot of online content, but at the end of the day, the box office speaks for itself, or the people that end up enjoying the movie speak for itself. You know, right. If people weren't going to see movies like Captain Marvel or shows like The Flash because they didn't like the actress, then The Flash wouldn't be on its 19th season.
Yeah.
It might as well be.
You know, so I just
with the mixed race daughter.
Yeah.
Who they casted perfectly for that, by the way. That woman has been in so much sci-fi, playing the same age every time. She's like 40. She's like
Bianca Lawson. She's been 15 for like 20 years.
Beautiful, wonderful actress. I loved her.
Yeah, actually, coming from like a producer side, I always, like when I hear that backlash, I'm like, I don't understand, because this is what people want to see. Like, this makes money. Yeah. I don't understand why there's so much backlash with it when everyone today they're talking about these issues, and that's what people want to see. But the actress, I'm sure, I mean, I don't know her, but I'm sure she feels a lot of pressure seeing and hearing all these negative comments, I feel like she has a lot of pressure to do well in the movie. When really, just like you said, like you don't know, you can't just base off of the color of your skin right before the movie's even made. You know what I mean? It was just, it's crazy. And I also, I wrote down notes. So these characters were made based off animated drawings, but it shows us by putting people of color that, we can play these people.
Yes.
Like there's hope for us, and like there's possibilities for us to be the Ariel, or I could be Cinderella. Oh, Brandy! I'm sorry, I just hit your costume.
I was about to say
Brandy. Brandy as Cinderella. That was another character I wanted to bring
Really
up. Like we could play these characters whether it's on stage, on the screen, television, or anything like that. Like it's possible, and people want to see it. So these like negative comments, you're right. It's just noise.
Actually, I'd like to say my childhood was actually ruined because, the queen was black, the king was white, and they had an Asian son.
That made my life.
I mean,
that made my life.
It just didn't make any money. It's not a cultural touchstone at all. I mean, it didn't change anything. It's a very beloved thing. We could go watch this after the panel. You know what I mean? That's how good it was.
Yeah.
I still feel that it stands the test of time. Rest in peace, Whitney. And it's just noise. Like I go back to it. It's just online noise.
Honestly.
I'm so glad you brought up Brandy, because that was also going to be my example, because I couldn't remember. I know last year I had a slightly different answer when you asked us about like who was the first impactful person we saw, and now I remember it was Brandy Cinderella, because I got to see a beautiful girl of color, and she was a princess, and there was magic, and she had a sparkly dress. And she got to have a fairy tale, which so often it's not the end of it. My gosh! Yeah, I mean, if I have any beef with that movie, it would be for setting me up for some very unrealistic expectations about princes. I was like, oh wow. But I do think when we're talking about the outrage in response to the casting, I think that one of the problems with social media nowadays is that bad behavior is very rewarded. In the sense that if I were to go online right now and post some crappy doodle I did of Ariel, I can't draw, and just post some drawing I did of Ariel and be like, here's Ariel the way she's supposed to be, I would get so much traction from that, because people would be engaging with it, they'd be responding to it. And I see a lot of people who are very happy to jump onto whatever is the most recent thing where they're like, oh, I can be real offensive and like get some attention from this. And so I have taken up a stance. I no longer respond to these people. I just block and move on. I'm not gonna quote retweet them so like my followers can see me dunking on them. They don't get the attention. I will, like, bit by bit, we can starve these people out and like stop letting them profit off of like their crappy behavior, because like what we've seen shows that these movies are doing fine. The vast majority of people are still going to go see Captain Marvel, or, I mean, Disney's a finely honed corporate machine. They knew what they were doing when they cast this actress. They are not taking chances. They picked somebody that they knew was going to excel in the role. So I'm sure Ariel's going to be just raking in buckets of money anyway. The actress is adorable.
Yes, she is. Yes.
But I think, and maybe even Disney profits off the outrage machine a little bit. But I think there are more people trying to blow this up and make it bigger than it actually is than there are people who genuinely believe that. I think starve the trolls.
Starve the trolls. I remember. Yeah, hashtag starve the trolls. I like it.
Everyone tweet it right now.
Because I remember, oh God, who does Decoded? Francesca? Decoded?
Oh yeah, Francesca. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I read her book, and she was talking about that, like kind of like her, relationship with, people who were trolling her online, and how she would like kind of go online and be like, no, you're wrong, and blah, 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 blah. Just like it just happened all the time. So much so that it ended up kind of distracting from her actual job at one point.
Yep.
And also, I guess someone went down a different like Twitter or Reddit rabbit hole, and they were like, yo, you want to get attention? Just say this to Francesca, and she will just like follow this thing. And so she looked at it and was like, oh my God, you are, it's essentially being baited to elevate someone else's platform. Which can happen, and it's just one of those weird things to kind of navigate. I feel like in like the social media internet space, but something that you definitely want to consider as your if your presence gets elevated for whatever reason. So that's definitely something to think about for sure. So I actually want to open it up to questions. Does anyone have any questions in the audience? I saw you first, and then you. Yes.
I was just curious how you felt about the representation as far as playing video games.
Oh, well, that's an interesting question.
Yeah. So she asked about the representation in video games.
Yeah, I think
don't know much about video games.
Oh, I know lots about video games. But no, if you're like overall, because overall, I think that video games have done a great job of incorporating diversity. However, I think that with online games like Apex Legends or Overwatch, they are not protecting their POC audience very well. I think that needs to be improved as these other games start to bring in more inclusion, whether it's racial inclusion or sexual identity inclusion. They need to start protecting the people that are already on their platforms with these other games. So it's great, but it can be better with stuff that's already out. Short answer.
Thank you.
I did hear something in another panel about video games, specifically about hair.
That's getting better. Ooh, kind of. Skin tone, not so much though.
Yeah, and hair options for people of color. That's kind of like there's more than just like, especially for Black people, just cornrows and afros. Like, if you yeah, but I mean, it makes me wonder about kind of getting animators who share those identities, getting kind of the and even in just live action media, that kind of pipeline of getting people skilled in those specialties, so that they can be in the room, so they can design things the way the things they need to be designed. But on top of that, it's also I've also been reading stuff where they're saying it's somewhat a pipeline issue, but it's also a gatekeeping issue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And finding out how to smash down those gates so we can, have better representation.
There's an account that I wanted to just shout out. It's Black Girl Gamers on Twitter.
BGG.
If you don't follow them, They're amazing. They have discussions about that all the time, and they're just fantastic. So shout out BGG.
And Black Nerd Problems.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
Black Nerd Problems too.
The Cookout Board.
Cookout.
And Cryptastic. Oh, sorry.
I guess I just wanted to ask if you guys had any media, whether it's TV or books, movies, that you maybe a lot of people don't know about, anything that's like piqued your interest recently that maybe we should look into, that has like women of color, people of color, or anything that's impressive to you.
Well, you can watch Handmaid's Tale season 3, episode 6. What up? I'll be the sad one.
With a close-up. You get close-up.
All of this.
Were you wearing red?
I was wearing red. I was. Also white. Also white.
You could easily pick.
If you haven't read her, N.K. Jemisin is incredible.
Yes.
Wonderful writer.
Octavia Butler too.
Octavia Butler.
Classic.
Danielle. I forgot the last name, but she writes Bells. That's a cute story.
Let me think. I know it's, I don't know, it might be a little problematic, and I know it's not specifically about women of color at all, but I love Trevor Noah's book, Born to Crime. amazingly for a couple of reasons. One, his portrayal and clear love for his mother that happens throughout that book is amazing, and you see her in the various choices that she makes, both going in line with and going against her own tradition. And then I think it's also interesting, especially if you get the audiobook, he has a very language-filled life. So, his family speaks Tosa, and I can't do the book sound, but yep, that's it.
Gotta do
Thank
it
you.
right in there.
Thank you. I have to train myself. But that and Zulu and Swati and his father is Swiss. So you get this very complex, very interesting, rounded concept of South Africa and these various South African women. And I think it's something very interesting to also see that from a male perspective, but it's it's kind of very full, so I definitely highly recommend that.
Yes. Craig of the Creek.
Yes.
Before I ask this question, I want to make one comment. Look, Triton was black in the original film. I don't care what anybody says. Plus the ancient Greeks who wrote the myths of Triton, who was the son of Poseidon, was black. So I don't give a damn. Anyway, but my question is, do you feel that in the genre of sci-fi, that creators are doing a good job in not having a token black character?
Are you asking overall or recently?
Recently.
I think it's kind of a mixed bag.
I want to say they're doing better because Krypton was really good about that.
Krypton,
Because the whole upper general family, I'm forgetting their name, the Zods, I don't know. They were all pretty much strong black women. And her lover, or the guy who wanted to be her lover, was a black man, and none of them were like, "Oh, we're black, so we must be together." It was like, "Okay, I actually like you," and she was like, "Nah, I'm good," and they moved on. It wasn't a thing. Their color did not become a thing. So I think that's really good.
Because the Zods were made black, the show is totally ending. Totally ending.
Is it ending?
Yeah, no, it's not.
Oh, fuck yeah.
It's like a season.
I definitely think it has gotten better, but of course there's always room for improvement, because of course there's a lot of issues that in the realm of sci-fi there's not a lot of it's just a storyline. It's not like, oh, because I'm black I should do this or this experience, because all of our experiences are different. But in terms of Asian Americans, I would like to see a lot of Southeast Asians personally, because I feel like there are a lot of Chinese, I'm all for that too, because representation is always a step for us collectively. But I would just like to see a lot. I would just like to see a lot more, definitely. But I feel yes.
I think that we're living in the age, though, that we have an entire Star Trek series that is being led by a woman of color. Okay, shout out to Michael Burnham. I'm sorry, that is my show. I love the current Star Trek. I got CBS All Access for it. I mean, who knows? That's okay, I was committed. All right, so I mean, we live in an age with that, but it could absolutely be so much better. But we're making strides. That's
Strides. But like
I'm also trying to justify that purchase.
True. But like you said, yes, more Southeast Asians. Because even my cousins, they were like, because I think they have a hard time too, because they're like, yay, more black representation. But then they remember that they're Filipino, and they're like, can I just have one?
Like even when I audition, there are a lot of breakdowns. They specify the Asian, and I can't audition for them because I don't. I'm like,
they don't understand what Filipino means in a lot of situations.
I'm like, just.
And so I guess the answer is yes and no, or more like maybe and no.
It's okay, but sound effects.
But with that being said, sorry, really quickly, if you guys are writers, if you it's great that we're bringing it to the table, but take action, get training, but don't put content out just to put it out. Make stuff that's great and that you really feel passionate about, because if it's just out there just to be out there for the diversity count, then it just doesn't do any justice for us, because we only have one chance, so like, or not one chance, but we only have these few chances, so like, go with it 100%, make sure it's great, get training, write more, connect with people, like, stuff like this is like amazing. Definitely, you never know who you're gonna meet, and definitely get out there, go behind the scenes, go in front of the camera, like, make it known that we are here. Will not go away. I'm sorry, next question.
No, but actually, I do want to piggyback off that, and we're going to go to the next question. I actually went to a screenwriting conference recently, and there was various writers, and there were quite a few, white writers as well, of course. And some of them were like, "Oh, I've added a black character," or "Oh, I have an Asian character," and then there's that question of, "Okay, I have this character, so how do I like make it okay?" And it's kind of like
you write a person,
right? But you write a person, but also, do you have relationships or connections with people who are of the ethnicity that you are, trying to represent? Do you, have you had these real conversations? Yep. Does your person of color friend talk to you about their frustrations about white people? Because if they don't, they're not your friend.
They're not your friends, son.
So it's like, if you're actually going to portray someone, it's important that if you have a relationship that they are real with you, because that's like, you recognize something that's real. Fact of the matter is, and I don't know what his relationships was, but The Color Purple is still an epic. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The Color Purple is still great in terms of reputation. The Color Purple was directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's like, he said, would he probably do it now? Probably not. But the fact of the matter is, that property is out there. He directed the shit out of it. And, try to take care of that story. So I think the question is, no matter who you're portraying, are you taking care of the story that you're telling?
Mm-hmm. And I would just like to say that, just kind of piggybacking off what you said about putting your content out there. I just started out going to cons, going to fashion shows, and enjoying myself. And someone was just like, "Why don't you just start a channel?" And I was like, "Sure, whatever." Started a channel, just, put a video out once a week, and I kept on going because it was a passion. I didn't look at it as, okay, you know what, I'm going to get... Because YouTube changes their rules every 45 seconds. And so I just started to continue to do it as a passion, just to meet people. I enjoy meeting people. I'm pretty shy, but I like meeting people. I like going out there and enjoying, and it's just taken me internationally. I'm here right now, and it's just, I'm not a ginormous YouTuber, but I'm enjoying. I'm doing what I love, and I just see the need for more diversity in that medium. I know it's women of color and sci-fi tech, but also just on mediums like YouTube and all of that, just for us to come together. And if you have a passion or you have something that you want to share, if you have the time, just do it. You don't know if it's going to take off or anything like that, because that's kind of what happened with me. And ended up, one of my favorite experiences was that I got contacted to do a plus-size fashion show, just cover a plus-size fashion show. And that video, to this day, is still my most watched video, because people were like, we don't see that, but we're out here. And the fashion that we like is just like shapeless muumuus and coveralls and stuff like that. And that's not what we want. When I did the fashion show for, and just showing beautiful outfits, swimsuits, lingerie, all of that for plus size women, it just completely took off. But that was something that I didn't think about. That's not something that I'm gonna think about. But because of my journey doing this, it was able to expand my horizon. So do it. Woo! Do it.
So just piggybacking off this idea of putting content out there, of course, getting writers and creators in the space also means uplifting the people in our community. So it would be wonderful to hear from each of you indie content creators that you support, that you think other people should be aware of, so we can uplift them, and then maybe get them jobs in the industry.
I've got this. If everyone would take 2 seconds to go onto their cellular devices, go to Twitter and follow Quirktastic, and also hold on, Team Red. If you guys haven't seen, they've made a Samurai Champloo live action movie. If you want to say, it was beautiful, right? You guys support them. Team Red Pro and Quirktastic made something magical. So the more you watch it, the more they get to do that and uplift the indie creators that are in both of those spaces. Me. And then also the other people. But also me.
And with that, that particular property, one, thank you for coming here because we're competing. But two, that's on the schedule, I think, on the Anime Fest. At what time?
I'm not sure exactly what time, but it is on the showing for the anime. The anime viewing.
Yes.
It is one of the shows that will be planned to be shown.
Okay. On top of that, it is also on YouTube. 6:30 tomorrow. You can go and support. Then you can go on YouTube and tell your friends to watch.
Looks amazing. Just saying.
It does look amazing.
As far as some other indie properties, they are also here. Tuskegee Airs.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So if you have not heard of this comic, shame on you. But also, it's incredible, and they also take the history of the Tuskegee Airmen, basically transpose it into the future with the same values. But what's incredible is that those of you who have grown up with Voltron or anything that's or Gundam Wing, basically like badass teenagers doing incredible shit, they do that. And they are all African or African American, and they are wonderful, and they are diverse hues. No one didn't choose one color of brown. It was different colors of brown. So, Tuskegee Airs.
Yes. Also, Ashtray Productions. He's local, Filipino director, which I feel like is rare. And then he's here in Virginia. Yes. So follow him, Ashtray J on Instagram.
We should have bought cards.
Yeah. I would like to just say these two made a movie. Okay. Yes. So if you want to go ahead and just talk about, maybe watch it. If you enjoyed the content here, go ahead and check out their movie. It's amazing. All right. We want to lift them up. We want to raise them up.
I've never seen this.
They're out there. Just pretend.
Oh, true.
And it's just amazing. So yes. So please tell about just real fast.
It's more your thing. If you want to tell them a little bit about it.
So it was with the 48-hour film festival. It was super quick. We only had 48 hours to produce it, and we had mainly all women. I have one friend in LA who did the music, and he's male, or identifies as male. But all of us are all badass women. It's about a girl who has a hard home family life, and definitely check it out. We'll post up the link, or Letitia will post up the link. So I don't want to take too much time for questions and stuff.
I just want my shout out.
The name of the short film it's called This Time. Our friend Christina Hastings has it on her platform. But Jonah not only produced it, but is also starring in it, and she's incredible. I wrote it, and it's this
amazing writing.
It was this really, really great experience. So thank you.
Yes. She also has a shout out.
Go ahead.
I do. Yes. For my shout out, I wanted to shout out the comic Sorghum and Spear.
I love him.
Yes, by Green County Creative, and is he here?
He's not here.
This year. So sad. Okay. He was here last year, I think. And he's pretty active on the con circuit. But it is it's a comic about a badass group of black women. It's got a very fantasy bent to it. I will say, as a costumer, the designs for all of the different characters, very cosplay friendly. Very nice. Something to look into. And not only do they do some charity work with the comic, they had a successful Kickstarter to continue producing. He's here?
Yeah.
Oh, he is here. He is at the dealer
304 tomorrow.
Yes.
Tomorrow and Sunday.
Yes. So you should go and check it out and see all the wonderful art. And I do believe he had Nichelle Nichols involved as a producer.
Wow. She's also a character in this comic.
Tying it all back to Nichelle Nichols. She was there at the beginning. She's here. So that's one that I would like to recommend.
And really, really fast, I wanted to shout out. Her name is Amun Ray, and she designs plus size cosplay. outfits. She is amazing. She is. I'll have to look because she spells it a certain way, but I'll look it up if you want to see. But she's based out of New York. She hands make them. They are amazing. I met her. I don't know if haven't run it. I don't know if she was able to make it here, but she's always here at Blerdcon. Fantastic plus size cosplay, A++ style.
Yes.
Nope.
Garnet.
Okay, cool. So
Hi.
I'm not super knowledgeable on sci-fi, but I'm a huge Disney head. Like, I know everything about it. And so I want to like backtrack to Little Mermaid for a second, because I'm going to try to concise this question real quick. I read an article by a young black man whose name I forget at the moment, but he was talking about how Ariel being black is amazing, but the probability of her having a black prince is like zilch because there are no black men in Disney. Tiana did not have a black prince. Every princess has a prince that they're the same race with the exception of Tiana and Pocahontas. But Pocahontas was a mess anyway, so Tiana did not have a black prince. Brandy did not have a black prince, even though he was Asian.
She's fine as hell.
And also Princess Kita was with a white man. So what is, I guess what my question is, because I was thinking about it a lot, like what are your thoughts on the fact that Disney has like 0 black men?
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's the lack of diversity. Although they're definitely trying, the lack of diversity. I'm not going to say that, never mind. The lack of diversity, definitely, it's there, but I feel like there are creators. Like, I just went online the other day and I saw that some of the animators, they're hiring people of color to start creating content for us. So again, about like getting training and putting your stuff out there. If you draw, like, keep it up, start Instagram, Twitter, like, hashtag, and, like, tweet at these people so you can get recognized, so that we can have people that look like us, male or female, or whatever sexual orientation that you have. Definitely, like, get it out there, because we need people like that. And I feel like Disney, again, they're trying to move there, but it's just the people behind the scenes.
Yeah. I will actually not conflict that, but I do think there's and specifically kind of like the idea of like a black or dark skinned prince. I think there's kind of definitely a much deeper kind of racial fear when it comes to that, and the idea of, you know, can Disney show a dark skinned black man as a kind person?
They did it in Atlantis.
Yeah, they
did.
Yeah,
you're right. They did. You know, but I mean, it is. I still kind of feel like it's not common, because like I literally I totally forgot about this, and I'm ashamed of myself that I did. But you know, showing that person as desirable, and then kind of our idea of what does the fantasy world look like? Does the fantasy concept have a place for a wealthy black man? Like, I wonder, has the imagination of, you know, not saying that there isn't wealth within, you know, black communities all over the world, there is, but does the common, or quote unquote, does the Disney imagination, do they have space for it? Do they have a story or a concept that allows that to be true? Is it true? Yes. Are there stories that do have those stories? Do those stories exist? Yes. Does Disney know them, and do they think they can use them? I don't know.
I will say, I'm curious to... Whoop. Let me punctuate my point of this gong here. I'm curious to see if Disney maybe does pivot more towards that, based on the recent success of Into the Spider-Verse with Miles. You know, they had a black boy who could have emotions and be vulnerable and form, like, you know, these beautiful friendships and connections with other people. And that was, I mean, it was beautifully done. It was very powerful. It did phenomenally at the awards, and it would be nice to see Disney embrace Black Boy Joy. Maybe we should all tweet at them collectively.
Right now, we need it.
But I think you made a really good point, and it's literally something I had not thought about, especially when you mentioned Tiana not being paired with a black prince, and like, I mean, that movie was also a thing.
Most people don't
she was a
know,
frog.
They were originally going to pair her with a white man, and there was some backlash, so they gave her ambiguous man from a made-up country.
See, it worked on me. I thought he was some form of light-skinned Creole man.
That's what I thought.
See,
I
was doomed.
That's not necessarily a possibility because it's an island that doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? Yes.
I am glad to hear about Disney, Marvel, whoever doing more representation and stuff like that. I think the problem that I'm seeing, especially on Twitter and Facebook, is that in light of the Ariel thing, it showed the problem that, okay, mostly black audience will totally glom onto a black Ariel, and they will totally forget about Tuskegee Airs. And they will totally ignore black-made properties where people are just like really busting their ass. And that's what happened to Milestone Comics. Although a lot of that problem was also distribution. So Milestone had to piggyback off of DC, and basically a lot of people weren't buying. You got to buy like a load of those comics, and if people don't buy Milestone Comics, then they're not going to order more Milestone Comics.
Right.
Now, I'm glad that Milestone evolved into the DC universe, and now we have Static. Hopefully, Icon showed up several times, Rocket and stuff like that. And I think that things have changed because now there's the internet, and there's social media, and there's video, and so it's driven down the level of skill needed, and the level of cost, and the level of time to basically produce your own content. You know, as long as you have it's not about finding a person that's willing to invest in you first. It's basically about now. It's really more about force of will. So after you get 8 to 10 hours done at work, and you put the kids to bed, and then you're doing your stuff, and then all you have to do is just upload it. It's a lot harder than it sounds, but it's doable compared to like 20 years before. And I think my question is that I think there needs to be a paradigm shift where I'm glad you're plugging non-big Media 7 content, and I appreciate that. And I think now the thing that kind of concerns me is how do we get people to break out of this, if it's not Disney, if it's not Lucasfilms, if it's not Marvel, if it's not, whatever, then I don't want to bother seeing it. Because let's just be honest, I do feel that there is still some deep-seated cultural animosity towards our own content made by us. We'll sooner buy a Nike or Jordans rather than buy shoes that other men have made throughout the cities that are cheaper, that are more stylish, that are more culturally relevant, that are more socially relevant. But if it doesn't have that swoosh logo in it, or if it doesn't have that Michael Jordan logo in it, honestly, Michael Jordan is really only as black as the brand. He's not black economically all the way around. It's not going back.
Or mentally sometimes.
Let's say that.
Well, thank you for the question. And, I have to say, that just I wanted to remind everybody that, speaking of Milestone Comics, I follow the Dwayne McDuffie account on Twitter, and all of his properties have been, they're going to have an exhibit for him at the African American Museum that we're going to. So look it up. And go and just see it.
Wait, how long the
because
exhibit? Do you know?
There's no
okay.
It's just starting, and so please just look it up because it's something that you're absolutely right. It is something that we need to support our own, and who didn't grow up with Dwayne McDuffie properties? Justice League Unlimited and all of that. So please go ahead, support our own.
Yeah, but it's also a mentality shift. I'm going to say this real quickly. It's a mentality shift. So stop looking at these big name things and be like, I must have that. Instead, look at your local artist and be like, maybe I'll buy a print. Maybe I'll buy their comic that they just released. Scorpio's a really good comic. And even right now, I'm blanking on the guy's name because I'm blanking in general. I'm very hot. But,
thank you for
really good.
Heat. I just want to say, hands up to you guys, though it might be too hard to clap.
True.
So thank you for being heat.
I did want, you've been raising your hand, so I wanted to get.
One person that I do recommend following is Chad Eric Smith. He is a reward-winning actor, and he also has his own short film called Rumination. And this short film is also very much sci-fi because it also plays upon the concept of time travel, and I've seen it myself, and I'm just like, yo, this thing has to be out there, like it's insane. So yeah.
I one called Bad Blood about the vampire.
Yeah, Bad Blood. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So he also has a short film about a vampire who is afraid of drinking blood, which is hilarious. And so and one thing's for sure, I was really feeling that whole thing about like even finding your own content. And what's really something about it is that like I had to say, wait, when you go into that search section of Instagram, you end up finding a lot of stuff. Like one of my friends who's a Nigerian and he's also like a fashion designer in Nigeria. I found him through Instagram and I ended up modeling for him at one point. So
strike a pose.
Always try to look for stuff.
Yeah.
Even if it's just looking up Black-owned businesses on Instagram or Facebook, like it's just one of those things.
And I want to kind of piggyback a little bit. I don't know who saw. Did anyone here see Fast Color?
It's on my to watch list.
Yeah, like
amazing.
It wasn't, but also like, but the reason why I bring that up is because of the idea of like we definitely need to support the work that is done by our local artists, by people who can connect and talk to, but also that kind of reality can't really be separated from the fact that, and like in so many things, you have other, Marvel has like a huge head start. Yeah. Disney has a big head start. Like a lot of these things, they have a big head start. And so do we need to support people? Absolutely. Do we need to share content? Absolutely. Yeah. But I think also sometimes we also need to kind of take time into account. Be like, not that there's only so much that we can do, but that we are doing an uphill battle. And that is and it is fair, and I think it is okay for us to sometimes still be struggling a little bit because it's an uphill battle, and to respect where we are, even if it's not as high as we'd like to be. And I saw he
had his hand
in the back.
The guy back there, yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. So a while back ago, it was mentioned that there's like a total shortage of Southeast Asian and going off of that Pacific Islander and so many other cultures and characters. And are there any that feel like real that anyone knows? The only Filipino character that I know that comes to mind is Tom from Soul Calibur. One of my favorite characters in video game history, but her weapons come from Northern Japan.
Yeah. And they use that so interchangeably with. I'm not going to take this over for you. I'm sorry. The little part of me that's Pinoy is giving that to you.
There honestly there's a lot of Filipino or Southeast Asians on stage more than screen and television. Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, definitely check out local film competitions. I just went to the Asian American film competition in DC, and that's how I found about Astray Productions, and he is a Filipino director. So definitely look up local, like in your communities again, because you never know. DC has, whether you're in DC or whatever, wherever you come from, they have so much to offer. Not only the theater scene, but in the film scene. Handmaid's Tale just came over here. Astray Productions is the first thing that comes to my head. We can talk later about other people to support and like follow, but definitely look up DC local film competitions. Even if it's as far as Wheaton or like Leesburg, they are out there like doing work.
Eventbrite is your friend.
Yes.
Okay. If you're going ahead, if I'm looking, I get invites to so many different things just right here in DC. So definitely Eventbrite it up.
I want to say like also in terms of like reaching out to the community and stuff. One of the things that's really made a big difference in the media that I've consumed, the people that I've followed, is I've tried to be part of more groups that prioritize people of color, especially women of color, and other underrepresented groups like the LGBTQ community, and being in online communities that focus on that center that. It's brought me more book recommendations. It's brought me people have been like, oh, like you might not want to watch this show because like such and such character is like very poorly handled or something. I'm in Discords where people talk about like, oh, like this con actually was not super great for me as a person of color, all that kind of stuff. And it's also been good for discovering like new media, new things that I do want to support from smaller creators that don't have access to the giant marketing budget of Marvel, or the way that some sites, not going to say which ones, YouTube prioritize content from for creators.
Yes, they do.
It's
yes,
actually
they do.
like
I'll
it's
say it,
harder
YouTube.
To get discovered. It's harder for people that YouTube may consider more niche to get discovered organically. But they are more than happy to be like, oh, hey, did you see like everything the Daily Show has ever made? Right? And I'm like, this is really not what I was looking for.
Or the polls.
But we are pretty much out of time, and you guys have been fantastic. I did want to share the social media of everyone here. Ninika, our lovely quirktastic writer. That's me. Halima, who, she's right over there. Thank you. That's Jonah.
So actually, that's wrong. It's JONAHAYE, like A, and then number 1. Oh no, sorry, just AYE.
Sorry.
Just on Instagram. No, it's totally fine. Totally fine.
Well, now we're all confused.
That's right. I go check her out after the show.
Yeah, check her out after the show. Allegra, our lovely cosplayer, and who makes her own work, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I made it all.
Yes.
I wish I put a fan in it. My head is sweaty.
Also, that plus size design. It's UN-RE.
Dash or underscore?
Dash. She's on Facebook. It's UN-RE Designs.
Can we make sure we hashtag everything Blerd?
Yes. Oh, yes, ma'am.
If you enjoyed this panel, hashtag
Designs.
Blerdcon, #Women of Color in Sci-Fi. I know it's a long name.
And she's on Etsy too. If you want to go on her Etsy.
And this is my Twitter, Leticia Creates. I'm Leticia Jones. I've been your panelist.
Yay! Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming, everyone.